Okay, so some interesting stuff about doing some Vox Pops with capturing audience reactions. I love that. Showing people coming back. Yes, the bars are open for intervals, but maybe allowing people to book tables for them to encourage them to come but know they've got a space, they don't have to queue, maybe pre-order their drinks so that they're ready for them at the table. What else have we got in here?
I love the idea of the visiting food truck.
So do I.
Our local pub stopped doing food and started doing food trucks, and it's just really good fun.
Yeah. Oh, here's one for Ticket Solve. So pre-booking, pre-ordering, pre-interval and post-show drinks. Could it be integrated into ticket booking system? Paul, Lucy, tell us.
I don't know actually if Paul wants to jump in if he's here, but I presume that came from a member of our Ticket Solve community. We have something very exciting in integration at the moment. It's near launch with a fantastic company that I'm pretty sure Katie and Heather are familiar with, Crowd Engage. That will be, oh, there's Paul. Hey Paul, if you want to jump in and chat about that integration at all. But yes, it's very close to crossing the line.
Yeah, and that's a very kind of a seamless, I suppose, customer journey when people are booking for shows, for interval drinks, etc. But that functionality does exist currently, and a lot of our customers actually currently use that. So I don't know who asked that question, but we're happy to, with lots of articles on Zendesk, we can share them with you afterwards, how to program that in. But yeah, it's already there. We're just looking at an augmentation on that, and that's with Crowd Engage. Just to add another layer in terms of the adding to the customer journey. So, and that's nearly complete. Happy to report. And Katie, you put me in contact with Crowd Engage a long time ago, actually.
Very good. You owe me a beer. Very good. Interesting. A few people saying we just need to tell people more about what is available and showing them that we're open. They're either assuming the bar's shut or it's being done in the way it was being done before. Highlight that the venue is a great local experience, absolutely great. Don't assume people know what the venue can offer because it's changed. So lots of lovely stuff.
There was one thing I just brought up in the group. Is that okay? Just which we found very useful for one of our customers. So what they did was that post-event they sent out, and it's along the same lines as yourself, Katie, a survey. And what they used then was the quotations from some of their customers. Yes, I felt very safe in your venue. Yes, I enjoyed it. The whole thing was seamless, etc., etc. And if they're happy for their names to be published as well, and it just adds credence to the whole thing. It's like, okay, yeah, that really doubles down to it.
Any other observations, Heather, from what's in the chat?
The staffing thing is interesting. People saying that they find it difficult to staff both the box office and the bar. Gosh. Does anybody want to talk about that? Just to share their experience of that.
This is Dave in the gate again, just quickly. Something that we have had trouble with in the past, both here and my previous job in the Abbey. I don't know if other people have tried this, but we moved to multi-skilled staff and found that was a huge help, where people work across ushers, bar and box office, and they rotate between all three. That's worked really well for us. So if anyone hasn't done that and wanted to chat to me about that, I'm happy to chat to anyone afterwards.
Wow. Gosh, that of course, that's logical. I'd not thought of that. Embarrassingly. Okay.
I guess if things are getting sort of joined up a bit more, like pre-booking your drinks through the ticketing system and all of that kind of stuff, and we've talked in our group about reserving tables in the bar, actually having people on box office who have seen that operationally and have worked it operationally is going to be hugely beneficial to the customer, because they're going to know how it all works. So I can see, everything's getting more joined up, isn't it? So that seems like a really sensible approach.
An interesting point from Annette in her group, saying that their franchisees, their bar and catering franchisees, are not yet back up to full speed. So actually it's hard to say the social experience is going to be good because they're not there yet, which is interesting.
And just to add to that, Heather, our group was speaking about, well, then, if your own facilities aren't quite there, could you kind of encourage people to go to your neighbors, a neighborhood bar or cafe? But then again, if your own bar or cafe is not actually closed, but not quite operating to capacity, then can you actually send people out of your own venue and screw your own franchisee? So it's a real tough one from a comms point of view.
The Mermaid's done an interesting thing. They've done a deal with their neighbouring pub to have an area where they're saying to their audiences, if you want to talk after the show, the pub's there, they'd love to welcome you. And there's a stage door chat in this particular room if you want to join us. And people are doing that, which is great. I love the idea of the stage door pub coming back.
There's a very good guide to what you can do on your website in the chat in advance, the information about the venue, and then capturing the audience experience with audience members as they're maybe leaving or heading to the stage door for a drink. It sort of seems to sum up what you can do in advance, just through your own communications and on your website.
Very helpful, fantastic. Okay. Shall we move on, Katie? Shall we? I think there's lots of ideas there. I think the best thing to do is share the chat with everyone afterwards, maybe. I think what's come up is about visibility. I was really struck by the number of people talking about, we're getting phone calls to say, is the bar open? And I've been doing a lot of focus groups, as I said last week, where people are saying you are invisible. If we're going to use that really simplistic model of how people make a decision, they've got to see that you're there. They've got to be aware of what you do. Then they've got to think about doing whatever it is that you do. And then they've got to do something about it. And then really, really importantly, we've got to get them to come back. But what they're saying is that first stage is just completely missing. And it's about the channels that we're using. Somebody actually said, you're invisible in town and you never used to be. And I think it's because we're coming out of COVID with reduced marketing budgets and just not being able to afford to do the stuff that we used to do. So I think we need to target the right audiences with the right reassurances. Yes, the things we've talked about, but actually we need to use the right channels so that we're visible. So I'd be really interested to hear from people, and we won't go into breakout groups yet. Let's talk in a big group. Are your audiences able to see that you're back and what you're doing? Are your organization's events top of mind for the audience? Are we on their mental shortlist, do you think? And are your communications visible in real life as opposed to just online? And if so, how do you know? What are you doing to announce that you're back? Anybody chip in?
Heather Porrick, I'm based in Dublin and kind of a producer, so not a venue per se, but just one thing to note, since IPA, the poster outside, since they've left at the end of last year, 21, I just noticed as well that that sense of things happening and seeing posters as you kind of walk around or bus around or whatever around town is completely missing, obviously. And that to me was always like a first pass at what was happening and things, and you'd see an Abbey or Gate or music gigs or whatever. That's all gone. So I don't know, like, do even venues come together or, you know, try to, I mean, I presume it's kind of too big to try to bring something back, but that outdoor poster thing, and maybe it's just because I work in the business that I noticed it more, but it was a lot cheaper than, say, bus advertising or, you know, kind of on the rails or stuff like that. But that to me is actually a big thing. That visibility is just gone now completely. Certainly in Dublin, maybe it's in other cities, I don't know, but it's a big loss, and I'm not sure how we get over it. But just even recognizing the loss of that to me is that first stage of what you were talking about there, or one of them.
The audiences I've been talking to mention posters. They really do mention posters, and the other thing they mention is banners. And then I really into Anne-Marie has said in the chat that she's actually reintroduced their monthly brochure and they're distributing it around the city, because that's the other thing they mentioned. It's three things. It's the brochure, it's the because they can pick it up and take it away, it's posters, and it's banners that they talk about.
But Heather, how do you square that with the whole environmental sustainability agenda? Because, you know, I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, we've moved away from print now because we throw so much of it away, and we can't monitor it in the same way that we can monitor online. We know how many clicks we're getting for things. So we've just ditched it. But the result of that is where we now are with just invisibility.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Audiences say they don't throw the brochure away. What they do is keep it. I mean, lots of audiences saying it's on their kitchen counter, and, you know, they talk about it and it's a prompt, or stuck to their fridge. It's a prompt to actually do something. But yeah, I mean, audiences are saying, you know, you've been missing for 2.5 years. I don't open emails anymore, and I don't see your social media because the algorithms mean, I guess, because they've not been interacting with it, it's not delivered to them, you know, it's not put in front of them by the platforms.
Yeah, could I just jump in and just kind of say, in relation to the monthly brochure, that like we grappled with the green issue, like we did focus groups ourselves, and we did a lot of work in deciding on whether we would do it, whether we could afford to do it, whether we could, you know, because it is costly. But we felt that we were going to do it, and we're not committing to it forever and ever as a strategy, but for this point in time as a strategy, because we really needed to. I think somebody mentioned there that people are overwhelmed digitally, and we found that people are overwhelmed digitally, but also people will go online to look for the specific thing that they want to go to. If you want to, we felt that if we want people to know what we're doing, we need to give them something in print. So we are monitoring it, and we are, you know, I mean, there's so many variables, but, you know, we reduced the print, and we've done all that, but that's what we felt, that at this moment in time, it was, we didn't want to do cuts by death by 1,000 cuts. We wanted to do something that would really be, we show we are back, and it used to be something that people knew we had. So yeah, it is a difficult one though with regards to the green policy.
Can I jump in there as well? It's May from the Hawksville and Sligo. Just to say, we are going through the same things as all the other venues, and we reintroduced our brochure for our summer season to announce that we were back, because we really felt we needed to. We also looked at recycled paper, so we've changed how it looks, and the distribution runs. So we're printing less brochures, and we've definitely noticed our sales for our commercial shows are really good, really strong, and I think the brochures really helped with that. But our artistic shows, even with the brochure, are really, really bad. So I think it definitely helped us to have the brochure. We've also started postering again, which we didn't do last year when we opened, but we've reduced the amount of posters. So even though we've gone back to doing a lot of the things which aren't digital, we still see that divide in our sales for the artistic shows and the commercial side of things. It's just interesting to note.
Yeah, can I just jump in there as well? We're very similar to Maeve, and the one thing we did in relation to our first physical program will be this autumn, but we had a meeting with the designer with the worry around sustainability, because we're now a green arts venue as well, and we've gone through that training with Katrina Fallon, and they have been so helpful because they've talked to the printers about using a particular font that uses less ink. They've also talked about the actual paper to ensure that it's recyclable, because sometimes the paper is quite glossy and people don't know whether it's recyclable. And then there's also the blocks of colour. We're keeping everything really minimal in relation to colour. Predominantly it's white. So, you know, if you are conscious of that, it's really good to get the designer involved from, you know, and have those conversations with the printer as well. It definitely helps the guilt. And the other thing is, I totally agree with Anne-Marie there. I really feel, you know, this is not something that we want to sustain in the future, but we definitely have to kickstart things. And, you know, in relation to posters, like, companies weren't even giving us posters because they knew we couldn't get them distributed. Whereas now we're back on, we need X amount of posters. We don't want waste. We don't want above a certain amount of flyers because we can't actually distribute that quantity anymore. All of those things. And our distributor is out there having conversations with places that would, you know, have taken a poster before COVID, and now they're not really into it. So all of that work is being done for our, you know, preempting our autumn program, and it is hopefully will help.
That sounds brilliant. I love that. I love it. So, I mean, the other thing that I would say is that trying to do some more generic awareness raising stuff as well. So I think going back to printing every single listing of every one-nighter in a massive thing is probably not going to do the job, because actually people will, if they're interested, if they've got beyond that C bit and they're interested in something, they will go to your website and see what's on and get the level of detail. It's just that first awareness bit. So if you've got limited budgets, or, you know, you want things to last a bit longer for environmental reasons, think about doing more generic stuff. Just literally, you know, that we're here, the bar's open, we've got, you can book with confidence, you get your money back if you can't, you know, all of those things we've talked about, but also reminding them of the sort of great music drama that's on locally. Just, we're here. So I think if it was my marketing budget, I'd be tempted to be doing some of that can last a bit longer, and it's not immediately out of date, and drive people to the website would be what I would be doing, I think.
Can we share a screen just from something, just to show you some creatives? Is that okay? Just really quickly, just for some theatres that we've worked with and just what they've done. It's quite playful, and I think it's certainly on message. I think Lucy's going to share her screen, if that's okay.
So we have here an example that's come from.
Can everybody see her screen?
I'm just about
Okay.
to share.
Okay,
this.
cool.
Just bear with me, just in case. Hopefully this is the right screen you can see. It's actually a case study that we did with Hartford Theatre, just about reopening, and this was probably conducted you know, at the height of the reopening efforts for Hartford Theatre. But I suppose the big thing that we're seeing, and it's not necessarily something new, is, you know, when we reopened the first time, the second time, the third time, it really was about looking at audiences' fears and calming nerves. And they have some examples here about how they did it, and you know, like some really, really fun and playful campaigns that really got their audience members involved. So one thing that worked really, really well for them was this kind of hug to Hartford Theatre, and people would drop something physically into the theatre. And another example actually that this brings to mind was around Christmas time. Prince's Theatre also did, drop your letters to Santa, anything to get people, even if they weren't attending, get them in or get them close up, and have your brochures or your flyers ready. I know, there's a lot of conversation about how we're digitally exhausted, but if you have a QR code, on your front door or near your post box, if there's anything that you can do, particularly if, you are looking at towards kind of your panto season coming up, if it's going on sale now for December, there could be something there. But what I can do is we can share this case study.
Yeah. So the first one there, see, just on page 8 there, first off, though, I think this is a really important one here. We're open, right? Okay, now some of this is a little bit out of date, but just again to allay people's fears and patrons' fears, like this is what we do: contact payment, online booking, not just in sanitization, additional cleaning, etc. Okay, and just to highlight those things, I think that's very, very important. Then the next thing what they did was, and again, obviously this is their own creative team, but maybe some of the various different variations on this and spins on it, they got really creative about using, pretty standout cinematography in terms of like, we're back and here's Hartford and cinema. And then there's a few other ones underneath that, which I thought was, this next one, really, really smart. So yeah, I think we can pull it over here. And it just really worked really well for them in that theme. And it was playful. People could identify with it straight away. And it sent out the right message. And I think, again, just even from talking from Anna a number of weeks ago, it's around that, is just to kind of get people's confidence back in again. But who are we, though? We are creative teams. We're the arts organizations that are coming up with these super ideas, and just to get people engaged again. And I thought those creatives that they created were pretty spectacular. Now, we can send on all this as well to everybody. And these are the guys as well that I also used from their surveys that they did, qualitative research from customers, their quotes, etc., and they populated those on their website. And that ties in exactly with everything yourself, Katie.
Brilliant, really good. Thanks for sharing that. So are we up to action planning, Heather? There's nothing I like more than a plan. Oh, she's silent. Get the cat off the keyboard.
I think an action plan would be a very good idea in a kind of gentle and not too complicated way. What do you suggest?
Well, I'm just wondering if should we go back into a very quick breakout room, and each of you say the 3 things you're going to do or discuss or think about, just 3 things that you've taken from today that you're going to do something about, because it's nothing like saying it to make it happen. So just 3 things each. And then how do you want them to feed back, Heather? Do you want it back in the chat when they come into the room, or is it enough to have just shared it with their peers? Oh, can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I think it doesn't matter. They can just share it with each other. It's only a 3-minute breakout room.
Cool. Let's do it.